So let's go through this. I'll step through it in the browser here. Okay. So that's what, now, you always have to explain why I did what I did. This is at a venue down by me, Crystal Point. Some people might be aware of where that is or not. There's not a lot of room to shoot there. One of the things to keep in mind when you're shooting people against the background, you try and keep them off it so that they're in focus and the background's kind of soft and not in focus. Your eye always goes to the sharpest place in an image. However, in this location, there's no way to back up. There's no place to go. That's it. You're going to shoot that, and it is, or you're not going to take the picture. It's that simple. So I had to find a way to really obliterate the background and make them stand out so that when you looked at the image, you knew you weren't looking at the rose bushes, you weren't looking at the grass, you were looking at the bridegroom. That was the whole objective to this whole exercise here. So first thing, let me go back. First thing I do is take out, you see all these distractions up here, you got to get rid of, clean that up. So that you clone stuff in, get rid of it. This is the result of the art history brush over the original file. If you look at the grass there, you can see some fine lines in there that are sharp. But the blurred part is the art, and you got to play around with the opacities to get it where, that's what I like, or it's too dark or it's too light. So you just fool around with that till you get it to, you visually see it where you like it. So now we have a bridegroom that's sharp, that stands out against a kind of a soft background. That was the next one. I think let me go back. Yeah, I darkened it down a little bit. And even more.
Do you mask it at all, or do you freehand it?
Actually, I didn't. What you could do is go back in and mask around if you go into some areas that you don't. In fact, that's a good point, because seldom do I use like topaz remask and take them out. I'll just leave the original file, create a duplicate, leave it, and then go back and clean up the edges with a mask. And then here I put it looks like a canvas texture overlay on top of it. So you can keep going with it, just, if you want to get a different look. There's a couple of different, that's what I ended up with that I was really happy with. And it got rid of all that sharp, defined area behind them. You look at that, you're looking at the bridegroom. And the background supports the image instead of being in conflict with it. So that's one technique that I
Steve,
use.
did you apply a little vignette?
Yes. Yeah. There's plenty of ways. If you use Nick, there's a in their tools. There's a tool that's you can lighten the center and darken the edges. I think I have that tool in here. We'll do it. But an easy way to do it is make a selection about, an inch in, or depending on how big the image is, and then invert the selection. Does everybody know how to do that? Invert the selection.
Yeah.
Make a new layer. Go to multiply. And it'll darken it. And then slide the slider to get it where you want it. Now, if there's some corners that are too dark, go in and just mask them out and take it off. But that's the easiest way to mask them. And you could do it with the square, you could do it with oval, you could do it with the lasso tool if you want to just freehand it. And invert the selection, hit multiply, and do it at 250. Feather. Feather all the way out. 250. Everybody understand what I'm doing?
Yep.
Okay. That way you don't get a defined edge. It'll bleed off nice. And then you can feather the whole thing later to lighten it up if it's too much for you. Almost all my portraits, I always darken the edges. Does everybody know why you would do that?
To bring attention.
You're looking,
back to the image.
it draws you, it's like looking in a tunnel.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Now, some images, depending on the image, you have to make personal judgment, where I don't want to do that, because everything is really part of the image that is important. But on portraits where you have a face in there, it's going to draw your attention right to that face.
Is there any validity to doing the vignette in Lightroom? Because they have an easy vignette.
Lightroom now 5, they have that radial tool.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah.
Use that a lot now. So yeah, that's kind of pushing away some of the older methods that I had by using the radial tool.
Yeah.
Because you can invert it, you can go back and forth. You can do it for the center of your area that you select or outside the area. Yeah,
That's my
I
lazy-
love that radial tool. Yeah.
Are you familiar with a program called Pixel Bender?
No, I'm a Lightroom and Photoshop guy. If you talk out of that territory,
Yeah.
I'm lost.
This is a filter that you put into Photoshop.
I've seen that it really twists and contorts things. I've seen that. You're talking about one where it's all like swirly lines and?
I don't know, I've
Oh,
never been able to get it to work.
I've seen it, but you know, there's so much out there, and you have to make a decision, where do I want to go with my work and what do I want it to look like? And I've seen some stuff that's amazing, but it doesn't fit it's my area that I want to go into. But yeah, I've heard of Pixel Bender, and I've seen pictures, but I've never used it.
Steve, can I nitpick for a second on that slide?
Excuse me?
I was gonna nitpick for a second. on
Sure.
that slide.
Hey.
In the upper left-hand corner, you left a red rose. It seems to be out of context with the rest of
Let me
the
open it
background.
up.
Yeah, just about where your cursor is.
Actually, I could have just, I was going to open it in Photoshop. I didn't really want to do that. Okay. I know what you're talking about.
Was there any reason why you left it?
This?
Yeah, that one.
Because it was there.
You noticed you didn't want to bother clothing
No,
that out, you wanted
I
to
think
show.
little hints of color. So, no, there were some roses down the bottom and some flowers in the
Yeah, but it
corner.
blends in with all the other colors.
This is some
That
white
was-
flowers
No.
down here.
Because then,
No,
So it was just.
just left it.
because you broke up
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
I was just curious if you
No.
left it there on purpose or, you know.
No, it's, to me, it's,
inside-
when you look at an image, where does your eye go?
To the center where it
Goes to the latest place in the image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the third.
They are the latest place in the image.
But thought to
The
look
lightest
third.
and sharpest, or things that draw your
Whatever that
attention.
is.
Let me close that, because I really don't want that there. Oh, here's, let's see. This was using the brushes that I got from Woody Walters. He has these they call them flower brushes. I think I paid $40 or $50 for a set of 30 some odd brushes. And his link is on that sheet that I gave you there, if you want to go look at it. He has a lot of different stuff. He's a phenomenal sports photographer. He does all kinds of sports stuff. I said, you know, that's pretty interesting what he's doing with these brushes. And up until that, I just had the standard brushes that were in Photoshop. What he did was, he took buckets of flour, sugar, any loose grain, and he tossed it. And his son tossed it, and he took pictures of it, and he made brushes out of them. So the brushes are they're not defined at all. And you can paint like this back, you create a mask and you can paint areas back in on this splattery looking pattern. There's plenty of brushes out there, there's tons of free ones, but those had a very distinct look, and I said, you know, it's well worth the money I spent on them. I got back so many times over, it's ridiculous.
Steve, would it be possible to illustrate that in real time?
Yeah, we're gonna hit on that. I just want to go through a few of the things, then we'll actually do some of the things that I'm talking
Are you
about.
talking about brushes, or are you talking about patterns within?
No,
the
they're actually Photoshop brushes that I use.
brushes?
Let's see if I can get out of here. You know what, let me open up an image, and then we'll just open up the brush. In fact, there's one of his brushes, okay?
Yeah,
That's a brush?
yeah, 'cause- and then you,
In fact, I got too many brushes in here. Come on.
Is that reference on your handout that Woody? you said
Yeah, he's on there. Yep,
Woody. Okay.
Woody Walters. Some of these I should go and get rid of because I don't ever use them. This is his brush set right here.
wow.
You see all these different things here? That's all his brushes. And a couple of these, like this one, all these in this row here I use a lot. Some of these skinny ones that I use once in a while. When you paint back with them, it's not like one shot.
Mhm.
And then you can even do it opacity, you can go back. Sometimes I'll diminish the size of the brush and go in with a mask and take part of it out of the center. You gotta play around. I play around in Photoshop all the time. Some of the things that I've done, I've learned on my own just from playing around there. But these brushes give you that look that I had on that other image here.
So you have a brush and then you select a color or a blend of some sort?
Well, you can reference back to the image itself
Uh-huh.
to a point. I mean, here's a good reason why I brought this image. She was laying on, this was all grass around her, okay? So what I did was, I went back in and I painted her face back in on a mask. Now the rest of it, out here, you see all these splotches? I just picked colors out, like off her dress, the grass, and just took that brush and painted that color at a very diminished opacity to put all that stuff back in here without any defined lines at all. So that's how you get that effect. It's not hard to do at all.
You can show us how to.
Well, we can do it up here. I mean, yeah, we can take an image and play around with it. And the other technique, like I said, was the smudge tool. This was all done with the smudge tool down here, just going back in. In fact, every one of these flowers I went over with the smudge tool. That image on the end, the flower pot, hours and hours just going in with a Texture One smudge brush on every petal, every part of the leaf, even the pot. That took hours. It doesn't look like it, but believe me, it took hours. Like I said, some things are quick, some things are not so quick.
Steve? With
Yeah.
regard to, with regard to the smudge tool, I know it's an art to select what pressure and that kind of stuff, but it seems to me every time I use it, it's like overkill, it overdoes something. How do you minimize that?
Lower the opacity. I think I use like 60 or 70% opacity on it.
So you lower the
Yeah,
opacity,
and then just gently just go in, and we'll do some of that too.
and the pressure, and with the Wacom tablet, when you, is it like in real time, if you press harder on the Wacom tablet, do you get more?
It does to a point, yeah. It does to a point. It should. If you have that option where it's pressure sensitive.
So you have to be light with the hand, you have to be an artist.
And you have to visually look at what
Yeah.
you're doing and say, nah, it's not what I want, or you know what, that's too much, or it's not, not enough. Like I said, that becomes
That's
a
subjective.
a subjective choice on your part. Is that what I'm looking to do, or is that's way too harsh?
Plus, on the tablet, you can adjust the sensitivity.
I know, but I guess you have to have a feel for it, but you lower the opacity as well as the pressure, and
Well,
you,
lowering the pressure is actually lowering the opacity.
Yeah.
no, I thought it,
Well, no, they're two different things. The
Yeah, that's
opacity
what I'm
and
trying
the
to get at.
pressure on the pen is two different things. Because as you press down and drag it, it's going to either move more of those pixels or fewer, and the opacity is either going to make it like
The whole
darker.
thing, yeah.
Yeah. So they are two different aspects. But when I'm fooling around with these flowers and stuff, it's not like I say, okay, step one, I press hard here and I know that's what's got. I do it by visual, how it looks on the screen. So you gotta use your own personal judgment at that point.
And I was gonna get a feel of it.
All right, let's go to another, and then we'll take an image here and we'll fool around with it.
Yeah.
Some of these, let's see, I think, some of these I have in layers here as PSD file. Okay. Every time I talk about Photoshop, I have mixed crowds. Somebody that's been doing it longer than me and probably teach me a few things that I don't know, to a point where, oh yeah, I just got it and I just loaded it and I've never used it. So if I'm talking below you or above you, I'm sorry, but a lot of people are not aware. Let's say you had 20 layers here, you want to look at one, you don't have to click them all off, you know that.
Yes.
You all click on the layer you want.
Alt click?
If you hold Alt button, It will unclick all the others and just look at that one layer.
Worth the price of admission. There you go.
I usually scroll through
I
it.
just told somebody this that's been working in Photoshop, probably 10 years longer than me. He says, oh my God, I didn't know that.
Oh my God.
There's so many things in Photoshop that you can't know them all. I printed out a shortcut sheet and I said, I won't live long enough to learn all these. I'm going to learn the ones I need to learn, and I'll stumble across them when I need them.
That's
If
a
I
good
need
one.
it, I'm going to learn it, and I'm going to use it over and over, and I use this one over and over and over and over every time.
Okay.
If you create a mask on an image, and you have 5 more layers that you want the same mask, alt-click and drag it to the next one, right? You know that?
Well, I've been doing that to turn them off.
Well, no, all I'm saying is, let's say I masked out a face and I got 6 different textures on
Yeah.
there. I don't want to have to try and mask every one of them out.
Oh.
If you hold the Alt button and drag it up, it'll take the mask up to the next one, and next one, and next one. The same mask.
Oh.
Easy, done. Yeah, we have no mask here, but that, let's see. So we actually, don't want that. This was actually not the original file. As you can see, we already did some work here with the history brush. But then I added, very subtle, it warmed it up a little bit. And again, we can look at just this one, which is right here. Almost can't even see it. And we added another one, and another one. And we ended up with that image. So there's 1, 2, 3 different overlays over that original image on here. That's easy to do.
Okay.
Whenever I'm out taking photographs, I look at the walls, I look at the floor, I look at the ceiling. And a lot of my textures have come from those things. You can buy them. I have bought textures. But sometimes some of the most popular ones I've used have just been a wall in a hotel room that somebody painted sloppily and has a grit to it. It becomes a good texture. So let's get rid of this. That was easy. When I put mats around them, and that's why I brought this up, I'll often do the same thing, is just, instead of using a solid color, come on, okay. Kind of hard to see here, but if you look at the mat, it's visually better on my laptop. There's areas like here that are not the same color as the whole mat itself. They kind of look cloudy looking. If you print those images, depending on your image, I try and make the mat work in harmony with the feeling of the image itself. Let's take this off. Now you maybe can see that. That's the mat without the image on it.
So how did you create that mat?
Okay. Easy question. There's the base color right here. I went into the image and found something that works in harmony. You know, you pick with the brush, pick with the eyedropper, and create a base color. That's this color here. Then I went in and put another color in there. The reason I did that was when you go up and you start to mask some stuff out, like here we have this black, and then this, you can put some feeling into the mat with those brushes that I had. If you paint over the mask with those flower brushes, they're not just going to be round white blobs, they're going to be the shape of that brush. And I think I just toned it down here, and then we ended up with that. So that's a little bit how I fool around with the mats. It's not that difficult to do, and let's see if we can find something else up here.
So the picture is smaller than the mat, And each
Yeah, I'll-
layer that
I'll
you
look-
add,
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm kind of assuming that some people have done this and have. I'll go in and find the size of the image, and then if I want to add 2 inches, I'll make create a new layer with
And you
a new,
increase the
I'm sorry,
size?
I'll just create a new blank layer,
Yeah,
all right? Then slide the picture over to it, okay? And then that becomes the matte, and I can
Right.
add color,
Right.
and then put layers over it. Now, you want your image, if you don't want to put any of those textures over the image, you want your image on top of all that, so that those textures don't show up on the image. Although I have juggled things around sometimes. What if I move this one here, move this one down here, and it'll change how the image looks in sometimes a lot, really. Okay, here's a case where, like I said, if you look, I have her face masked out on this map here. Real easy head and shoulder portrait against the wall, just like this. I usually pick a window where it's, try and get it like 45 degrees to the person's face. If you look at the right side, actually, yeah, the right side of her nose, there is shadow there. That's a good thing for portraiture. You have shadow and highlight. That is what they would consider a broad lit portrait, because the broader side of her face is lit and the shorter side is in shadow. That's usually opposite of the way I usually like things. I usually like the short side, but that's a whole other subject. Real easy, basic portrait. Now, another thing, important thing when I do these images, guess what I still use? A handheld meter. I still use a handheld meter, because remember I said before, I'm in control of the house. I don't want my background influencing my exposure. Everybody's skin tones are different, right? If I use a handheld meter, it doesn't care. It's reading light that's falling on the subject, not what's reflected from it. If you use a handheld meter, it's going to be 99% of the time dead on. Whether that background is white, black, pink, yellow, it doesn't matter. I want the face exposed right. And then if the background's too light, I can darken it up later. So I use a handheld meter almost all the time for my portraits in the house.
I noticed you use quite a bit of the soft light blending mode.
Yeah, for textures, you have overlay, soft light, and hard light. I have used all 3 of them. Soft light probably 80% of the time. Hard light will be really, I'll show you. If we go in here, that's soft light. Let's change that to hard light. It gets really tough. Now, you can lower this down if you want to do that. But normally, if you use soft light here, even at 100%, it's pretty smooth. But in fact, I've taken the same texture and mixed them sometimes to get the overall effect. Again, that's something visually, when you're doing this, you're going to have to decide on your own. But those 3 are they're the most common blending modes that I use for textures. This array of color in here, the black and white portrait that I did of Marty, which is all jumbled up, that was in that tunnel, and it was graffiti on the wall. And I took the smudge tool. Let me back up. I took the original image, duplicated it, put them together, so I had a wider palette to work with, and blended the 2 together. So now I had a wall of just graffiti. Then I went in with the smudge tool and played around with it, ended up with something very similar to that, and put a texture overlay over it. Now it looks like a canvas background that what you would do in the studio with a portrait. And I've used that a lot, sometimes on its own, and sometimes blended like here with other things to give me the effect I'm looking for. So it's very subtle here, but if you take it out, you can obviously see a difference. Again, it's almost vignetting but with color. Also, it's not just darkening it down. So here's a case where I took this mask. Let's get rid of this. You see the colors all over her here? So if you just hold down the Alt key and just drag it up there, you get the same mask over both of your layers. So you don't have to try and go back in and paint it out again on your own. Take a look at one more, then we'll go to a different folder, and then we'll take an image and kind of fool around with it a little bit here. This was one of the pictures, I said before, I went to a lair the day it was kind of raining real subtle, and the first thing that came to my mind is there's going to be water dripping off the leaves. I got to find one that's got a background where there's no twigs running through it, although you could clean that up later. But if you look hard enough and there's a tree 5 feet away and it's kind of goldish brown, great soft background if you're focused at like f4 or 2.8 or something like that, and it'll just bleed off into nothing. Here's a, remember I said this is at 67%, that's where I made a selection and then inverted it to burn the edges down. That's what I did there. Very subtle, I wanted the concentration of light right here, so that kind of defined that area. That was the wall I photographed. That was I forget, a hotel or someplace. It was just a wall. I said, man, if you look closely, there's brush marks in there, there's little dimples of paint there. I've used this so many times, I could sell this, it would be phenomenal. It's a great texture. And it's a neutral color, so it usually works pretty good. I don't always mask out the texture with a mask, and there's a way to do it without doing it. If you pick out a color, we'll do that. I'm going to do that before we leave this image. You pick out a color in the mask, and then just paint the color back in. Where all that texture is, it gets rid of it. And the reason I do that is if you use, let's say you have a real warm colored mask, but the photograph was taken in kind of cool light, they don't match. If you use a mask, it's going to bring the coolness back in on your subject, and you're going to have a warm texture around it. If you paint back in over the mask with a color that's part of that mask, it's all going to look the same. And we'll do that. Back, let's see here. That was, the original image actually isn't that bad. Now, I did use adjust in topaz on that leaf to bring out the veins. It will define all those areas. The tool adjust in topaz. Now, you can easily overdo it too. And it doesn't work good on skin. If somebody's got a bad complexion, oh my God, it's going to make them look like a monster. So you have to mask out their face if you want to do that. And I've done it on, like, if you're in a entranceway to a beautiful hotel and there's lights and stuff and you really want to bring out all that detail, it's great, but you got to mask out the people. You got to take it off their skin because it really does not do them justice at all.
So I take it topaz does more than sharpen and...
Oh, they have a
sharp.
whole string of tools. Mm-hmm. You know, they have some black and white tools in there. They have adjust. They have a thing called clarify, which kind of is like adjust, but it's got its own little nuances. Simplify. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Now, I rarely ever just go click and apply the whole thing to the image because it usually looks, it's what it looks like. It looks like you did a one click and, you know, but I'll use it and then I'll put a layer over it and take it out of where I don't want, mask it out, or put it in where I want it and use it in that way. All right, get rid of that.
Steve, we're going to have to back up soon.
Okay.
It's 9 o'clock, they usually want us out.
Okay,
there.
well, let me-
Go for about another 10 minutes.
Let me take one of these. Okay, yeah, I knew this was going to be a little bit of an issue because to sit and actually do one of these is time consuming sometimes. But look at all the work here, okay? And it's not really that complex of an image. In fact, I wouldn't even use it for anything. I was just playing around. But I was doing a wedding, walking in Spring Lake. Everybody familiar with Spring Lake by the gazebo and the
Yep.
pond there?
Yep.
And I see this guy walking towards, there's that bridge that goes over. And I said, that's the biggest dog I've ever seen in my life. 155 pounds this dog weighed. And I said, man, it's gorgeous. I got to take a picture real quick. That was it. One boom. So, naturally, if I had time, I would have never done it there, although it's not horrible, but it's not great either. So I said, I got to isolate the face somehow. So that's when I started playing around with this. So, got rid of everything here. Remember I said I put a white blank layer in here, and then just started painting this stuff in. Here's those, see the brush marks here?
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom,
Use a different
boom,
one of these.
Wow.
boom. We have no picture yet. Then I took the dog and I just painted, a black mask will cover everything. And take the brushes and paint the face in. And then this just brightened it up a little bit. And I always work on the eyes and brighten the eyes up. That's easy to do.
Can you show just the top two layers that you have there with the mask?
Just look at the top two.
Yeah, just the top two.
Let's see. That's the dog. That's all you got is the dog there. Or his face, I should say.
So you created a mask with what?
Well, here, let's do this. Put everything back here. Okay, important thing. Unless I forget, I usually don't work on the original base layer, create a duplicate. I mean, you could always go, don't save, but if you forget, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you want to know was, here's the dog, I got a white layer over him, so the white covers the dog, right? We basically have nothing except all these brush marks, and then the dog is back up here with a black layer. Oh, by the way, control invert. If you invert the mask, that's what now you see what I took out. Control I will, if you want to invert your mask for whatever reason, you can do that. So I went back in and just painted the center of his face in here, right here. Now, if you hold the alt brush and hit the mask, you'll see the mask only. There's the mask.
My question is, how did you create that mask?
Just
What selection? I think
just
what
go
he's
up here.
asking is what selection.
Down
can you
here.
use?
Use quick mask?
no, just right down here. Put a mask up here.
Oh.
Well, right down there, isn't that called quick mask?
Whatever this is down here, it's a
Okay.
mask. That's all
Okay,
I
yeah,
just click
that-
on that, it puts a white mask up, and then I invert it
Okay.
to black.
Oh, okay.
So I'd rather paint in what I can see than out what I don't want. Because if you're painting on white, you got to have a black pen. If you're painting on black, you got to have a white pen. That's just that simple, right? So now we have the mask there, and the only thing you see is his face coming through. And then this, I just brightened him up a little bit, which is almost even hard to. It could be even brighter than that. That's a little bit darker than my screen here, and on my computer at home, that the monitor is calibrated, it looks dead on. So, you're losing a little bit in the projection here, plus I'm off a laptop that's not calibrated either. So you can isolate, you could do this with a flower. In fact, that little iris in the show, you saw the whole background there? The blue iris, and you all you saw was the ground behind it? I did the same technique, right? Put the white base layer so you can see what you're doing. And then paint the iris back in, then pick out part of the color of the iris with the eyedropper tool. Put another base layer in and dump the color in there. And now that's the one that you saw with the iris with the square, a rectangular box on it. Just paint the whole back. You can make, that doesn't have to be white, it could be any color. It could be gray, it could be, In this case, I had a white dog with you know, prominently white, so I used white. But it could be any color to complement your subject. So that iris, that's the way I made the iris background, instead of being white down here. In fact, I'll always start with white. Then add another blank layer and pick colors and dump them in there and see if they work. You know, so let's take, here. Let's go here. Anywhere here.
Probably have to sample white.
All right, so this you have nothing on it. Right, we got nothing, we got a blank layer.
Okay, but that's where it is, okay.
Let's just kill this for now. Save it. If you have a brush open, like I have a brush open right now, instead of going back and forth, if you hit the Alt key, you get the color picker. So now you can go in here and pick any color. All right? So now, let's see. All right, now let's put the, now that color's showing through. So you can make the background any color you want. Does that sound confusing, or? I'm getting no reaction. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be white, but I made it white in this case because the dog, it complemented the dog and the white background looked best there. But like in the case of that blue flower, that's all I did with that blue flower. I went in and picked part of the color out of the flower and said that meant that color is good for the background. Drop the color in. Now on the flower, and on him too, like after those brush strokes are in there, you can take your smudge tool, I've done that too, and just smudge so that if they're real defined, just take the smudge tool and bleed them out with the smudge tool. So you can either leave it sharp or not sharp. There's no end to it. I mean, you can keep going on and on and on with that. Are we at a point we got to stop, or are we?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I wish we had another hour. We're gonna have to come back.
You wanna do that?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'll work on a couple images, and then I'll leave one blank, and we'll go through it step by step by step.
Okay.
Because you know what happened? I'll tell you what happened, and I apologize if I was talking over everybody's head here, but sometimes you get a group that the guy in the back knows more than me, and he's telling me, do this and he'll do that. And, oh, I didn't know that. Then I got a guy who says, can you go back 3 steps? And you're kind of mixed group, and it's hard to
We had it grasped in elements here, but I'm not well versed in masking, so
Okay.
that was my problem. But
Yeah, well,
understand the concept.
I really mask out, you know, you can go into like quick, a mask where you take fluid mask or one of those other tools and you go around it. I don't do that too often. I'll go back in and paint in like this where I want things and change the background. That's the way all those images were done, except for Marty. Marty I did mask out and took him out. He was so easy to do because if you have defined lines and you don't have stray hairs all over the place, it's easy to do.
Steve, this is great. And you're the,
All right, I hope I helped people out. Before we leave, people that get Shutterbug, here's the write-up on that Asus monitor that I was talking about. It's $467.99 at B&H. They got, this guy raved over it. So that's not really a lot of money for a real good monitor. 24-inch monitor.
okay, I gotta tell you
Okay.
how we got Steve here tonight. Harvey saw Steve somewhere. Where was it, Harvey?
The temple, and taking full, very nice.
There you go. So Harvey said, get in touch with this, actually, you got in touch with him, arranged it, and that's how we got you here.